beautiful Sunday morning. It's not really, it's cloudy out there, but that's all right. Welcome to stream number 2 of Experience Points. I'm Wormy, also known as Russell, and we're going to continue to work on our AR development project here. My side gig is working with a company called Atlantica. We have been working on AR VR stuff pretty much since the pandemic. My friend Ryan and another friend Matt, who have both contributed quite a lot. We've actually shipped one game on Apple Vision Pro, and kind of excited to work on something else right now. Right now, this is mostly just Ryan and I are messing around. With our previous projects, we've always been developing in Unity, so that's definitely where we've spent most of our time. And we've been developing on the Quest 3, and one of the challenges has been, as Meta has been working on enhancing their kits, their SDKs and things, so that to make development smoother. When we tried on our last project, we had a project that we submitted as a proposal, and I don't want to talk too much about that, but one of the things, when we were sort of experimenting to decide what we wanted to do for that project, very early on, we wanted to do AR and we wanted to do room scale interactions, so that the furniture in your room and the walls and the ceiling and the things that are around would be interacting. That's really sort of the promise. I think that gets us very excited to do that. But at the time when we were looking into some of that, the tech was a little wonky. It would work, I think, if you did native development, but whatever native is, I don't even know what they do. Probably Android Studio or something like that. But the stuff that was working in Unity, there were problems, there were issues. Now, Meta has continued to just really keep updating their tools and their Unity plugins and stuff, and so we think things have come along quite a bit. I'm very new to that part of it, and really, in the end of the day, I'm still pretty new to AR, VR. I've only been doing it for, side projects for a couple years, so this is the kind of thing where we keep going in, we keep learning more, and really in the Meta Quest Oculus world specifically, trying to use their tools, we've only done sort of one project with that, so there's always a lot to learn, and that's really cool. That's fun. It's always like we get in there, and doing this stream again to try to sort of involve everybody in the process and let the world see what we've got going on here. I appreciate those of you who started following. Thanks so much. I know this is my first stream. I've never done any of this before, so it's brand new to me. I'm learning it as I go, and boy, there's a lot to learn just in the world of streaming and that kind of thing. And for anybody who hasn't followed or subscribed or whatever, they're just watching, I appreciate that too. Thanks. It looks like I haven't quite figured out a schedule yet, but probably weekend mornings. That's usually when I get on. I get a little quiet time in the house, and I get to work on this. Again, for me, this is kind of a side gig that I work on, and this time around I just wanted to record it. So let's dive in. What are we looking at this morning? So over the week, Ryan's able to devote more time. He's able to go in and sort of, he gets some work done, and because he actually lives pretty far away. I'm in Massachusetts in the United States, and he's in Sweden. And so while he is a U.S. expat who lives over there, it makes an interesting time difference for us. So a lot of times, scheduling meetings is always challenging. We try to get together and talk. But in the meantime, we do a lot of our work sort of passing work back and forth. We use source control. In particular, we're using Bitbucket source tree. You can use anything you want. You can use GitHub. Doesn't really matter. But for us, that's how we're doing. My MO is I'll get in now I've got some time in the morning. I'll get on. I'll grab his stuff. I'll try to sort of see what he's done just to sort of situate myself and get a handle on it. And of course, I got to figure out what am I doing. So what has happened since last week is it looks like I'll read some of his check-in notes. Basically, he added auto-generated colliders to all surfaces and objects. with the Meta SDK effect mesh component. That's new to me. I don't know anything about it. Still learning things. But that's obviously this guy right here, this effect mesh component. So this looks like this is a component that must be. I'll interpret it in a second, but let me finish reading. He made it so you can fire the gun. We have like a little pistol that's connected to your right hand controller, and that little pistol now can fire using a trigger. I don't remember. I think when I ended the stream last time, I think I had been frustrated with sound. I couldn't get the sound to work, even though I was adding things. I was trying to import stuff from other projects that I'd worked on, and I was like, again, I haven't been developing here for a couple of months. I kind of took the summer off. And so everything is like, oh yeah, how does any of this work? Right, okay. So at the moment, I remember that when I left, I was frustrated because the sound wasn't working. And I was trying to remember there was something really obvious and stupid that I missed. I should have written it down so I could make sure to mention it this time. But let's at least show you sort of what we've got set up right now. In the main scene, there is an audio manager singleton. And I suppose I should describe what am I trying to do. I'm just trying to have a simple way to call audio clips from anywhere in the game. So let's say when you fire a gun, or you have a bullet impact, or you have a creature dying, or whatever it is, starting from script. I suppose it's also worth noting I like to work from script a lot. It's where I'm comfortable. So I almost hate Unity associations because they're hard to search and it's not obvious what's going on. And sometimes, especially if you weren't the one who did it, you lose track of what's going on deep inside the game. But anyway, that's enough opinionating. The idea here is I wanted to make a way so that you can very easily call scripts to trigger an audio clip. It's very dead simple. And in the Meta SDK for Oculus, there is different kinds of audio. There's spatialized audio sources and non-spatialized. Spatialized means when you hear the source, it's going to sound like it's in 3D space, and it's going to be oriented relative to the rig's space, the rig's orientation to the sound in Unity's 3D space. Non-spatialized are just like they're just going to play a sound. It's going to play through the headset. You're good to go. So the first thing I like to do is make an audio singleton that lives at the root of the game, so you can just always reach it. You can always say, "Hey, I just want to trigger sound." So that's what we did. We'll look at it in just a second. I'm just going to double check to make sure the stream. Yeah, it looks like it's working. I think the sound is working. Again, this is all new to me. All right. So how does this work? We place one of these at the root. If you call play clip non-spatial, you pass in the audio clip, so that's where you might have it defined in various places. And then there's a nice thing, this little audio source, which will look at this is I believe this is a Unity class. Yeah, this is a Unity class. So we're just saying, hey, there is an audio source. That thing, we're telling you to play one shot, which means you play it once, no looping, and you're just gonna play that clip wherever it is. Awesome. I have some other things. I have an audio list singleton, which is just a convenient way to, hey, let's in the editor in one place define a bunch of the sounds that we're going to use, so that way they're well organized so you can find them later. Because that's another thing is like a lot of experience has taught me to organize your project and put all that effort in at the beginning so that you can find everything and let everybody know how things work. With Ryan and I, we're sort of we're in prototype-y kind of mode, so I don't know how rigid we'll be on any of this, but I try to let him know when this stuff is in, and then he can utilize it, and hopefully he will utilize it, and that way we don't lose stuff. But anyway, so this is list singleton, it's just a way to list a bunch of sounds, and then this is simply, I don't even think I use this one at the moment. This is just like if you want an audio clip for one shot mono behavior, so you can just I just put it somewhere and reference the clip, and then there's a method on it that's called play clip, so any object can have an audio clip that I can just play, and it knows how to call the audio manager singleton. In order to make sure that all the sound is working, what I did last time was I was making sure that here in Unity I set up audio folder. I made one singleton, nice and easy. I had my audio list singleton where I just have a couple of sounds I grabbed. In order to get the sounds, there's a great library called kenny.nl. I don't know who's responsible for it, but whoever it is, they are a delightful human or humans, and I definitely think they're fantastic. Let me see, does that? I think it does. Let me see if my window works here. Hey, look at that, it works. This is the website. It's KENNEY.nl. I think NL is the Netherlands, my guess. I don't know. Who cares? Whatever they are, whoever they are, they're great. There's a bunch of assets. They're free. You can donate. It's great. And you can just, this is great for like prototyping. Just go get a bunch of things. These assets are wide and varied. There are some that, well, I guess they have special fancy things too for money. But anyway, with their sort of default assets, what I find useful is just a set of audio. You know, you inevitably need a bunch of interface stuff just to get anything working, just to like, I don't know, clicks, taps, rollover sounds, all that kind of junk. Getting a bunch of UI stuff. So again, you can just sort of grab a UI set and it'll help you just draw very basic UI stuff. And you know, no matter what game you're in, I do come from a background of a lot of UI engineering, so I'm always, I guess that's the hammer, you know, that I started with. But in my opinion, I'm always like, there's always UI. There's always 2D UI somewhere in your game, unless you're super avant-garde. And by all means, the AR VR space is where that's going to happen more. But people are used to menus. People, even if you're playing a game that's very immersive, you know, there's always like the start menu or whatever, and it's going to be a thing. So it's lovely to have this, and especially when you're prototyping in the beginning, great, you can just grab some of this and it looks reasonable enough that, you know, you can show it to people and you won't feel sad. Whereas if I made it, it would look terrible. There is audio files, which is nice. Again, different packs you can grab, so you get the idea. So what's nice is once I have grabbed, you know, kind of a set of audio files or whatever, then I just put them in my project. I try to keep them organized, try to reference them, etc. I try to remember where they came from. This is like, you know, it's good to keep your project structured well. And sometimes we actually make an import folder and everything we ever import goes under there, but I guess, I don't know, we haven't done that this time. There was another, I think I have a couple of other tools I wanted to showcase, but we'll come back to those in a sec. So once I had this audio manager in, and I had this audio list singleton where I could just specify a couple of sounds just to keep things convenient, then I wanted to test this. So I'm like, all right, let's be good and make testing. I also made these prefabs. So we have a prefabs folder, and I have kept groupings of things as prefabs. Prefabs are the key to living with multiple people working on a project. If we did all the work without prefabs, every change would require the scene to change, and every scene check-in would potentially be a merge conflict for Ryan, who's going to get the scene and maybe have made his own changes. It helps that we're off time-wise, like our time zones are different, but you know, nothing's perfect. And in theory, you can scene merge, but I've never done it. And when I've tried, I don't know, I've had mixed results. So I have done it, but I've never done it like long-term. I've only done it experimentally. So I prefer to not get involved with it. Scenes, we kind of try to let each other know we're going to work on a scene where the content you're changing is explicit, and then we start to move everything into prefabs, and that way, if I know I'm working on the audio manager, it's unlikely he is also working on the audio manager, and therefore our prefabs are checked in separately, and things work out nice. At some point, there's more things that we're going to want to prefab out, but we're very early in this project, and we're still just kind of messing around. So let's get back to this. The next thing is the testing block. I did make a testing prefab, but this is just simply a test script. This test script is super simple. It's using something that I made called the controller input singleton. What's that? I'm just trying to get bare bones functionality working, like with the Quest controllers, can I detect when I have pressed buttons? In this case, the controller input singleton is, I suppose I should switch the view for you. Hey, there you go. So this controller input singleton, I'm looking right now at the test audio system. It's referring to this controller input singleton. The controller input singleton is just another object we have. We'll go look at it in Unity in a minute. But all this guy does is simply have the controller mappings that the controller is aware of. There's an update loop, and it just listens. That's all it does. It's very dead simple. We've definitely played around with this. There's input, and managing input is a whole thing, and your hands versus your like just doing controller inputs, like button presses and sticks. We're kind of starting with that to capture it. In other projects, we've done hand tracking and all that kind of stuff. We've done switching between, the controller shining a ray that you can highlight objects versus the controller, kind of floating in space without the rays. There's all kinds of levels to how you do sort of interface and controls in AR, VR. So that gets nutty. But for the moment, we're just keeping it simple. If you press a button on the controller, I just want to be able to test something. So that's where we begin. I do keep this very handy link here to the controller inputs. And this is pretty key because when I want to take a look at the controller mappings, this one URL here is fantastic. I suppose if I was a good doobie, I'd put it in the description, but Lord knows if I'll remember to do that. But here's the thing. It's right here. This is beautiful because it tells you what the mappings are. And it knows, all of the button mappings actually refer to a button that they have labeled with a certain name or identity. And you want to be able to refer to that. Okay. There's also documentation here about how to get the input presses and things like that. That's essentially what I read in order to get to this point. Again, it's been a while. I lifted the code for my other project because I'm like, I don't need to relook at it. This I left in here. We're not using it right now, but this was just to remind me how you get a vector from the thumbsticks. So when you want to access, the thumbsticks, you want to know how much X and Y value you've got, positive and negative. That's telling you where the stick is and which way it's going. This is how you get it. We're not using it right now. Maybe we will later, but I figured I would leave the method in just for my own reference. But in the short term, this is how this guy works. There's an update loop on this mono behavior. This singleton is still a mono behavior. All our singletons are mono behaviors. And all this is doing is it's asking the OVR input method class, which comes from Arcus, to get the down state of a particular button. This is the reference to the button they're talking about. And when that happens, this will fire. Is this perfect? Nope. You can eventually get issues with this and all this, but let's not worry about it. For now, it works. If I press button 1, it plays a sound. And in particular, now we're getting to what I try to do is create action mappings that other classes can wire into or not. So this will run all the time, and it'll always play this down button when you get down, because right now it's pretty simple. And you can see here, Ryan added another one for the secondary index trigger or the primary. So it looks like if you press either index trigger, and just to remind ourselves, which thing are we talking about here? We're talking about the, I closed the window. Where did I put it? You guys can see it, but I don't know where I put it. Where is it? There it is. Yeah. This has right here, you have primary index trigger, secondary index trigger. So these are just the trigger buttons on both controllers, right? That's all he maps these to. So now that those are listening, and there are different ways you can get the sort of buttoniness. If you say, get down on this trigger, it's just detecting whether that trigger has gone past a certain threshold as if it is pressed down. You can also independently get the axis of that trigger. So if you wanted, like, let's say I'm going to drive a remote control car or something, and I want to pull the trigger slowly and read the level of how much you've pulled the trigger, you can get an axis to get that information. But that's not what we're doing right now. Right now, just to be simple, he's got if this button has been pressed, then he made a new action on fire primary weapon, and now we can see that as. Now if I look in the code, where has he used this thing? It looks like he's got it in this weapon base class. This will be sort of a class that we'll keep around to sort of be the base class of lots of our weapons if we have different happens or whatever. And he's just saying, hey, when that amount of behavior starts, you register yourself with the controller input singleton, and you fire and you do things. As you can see, he's already got one override of this base class, and his on fire method for the pistol is, yeah, okay, it's looking at time. He's got a cooldown timer, so you can't fire, infinitely. He's instantiating a projectile. Hey, we should make pooling. It's a thing we'll do later, but good to think about it as a thing we should do at some point. He then grabs a projectile. You can see he's got a projectile base class. We've done this 50 times, so he's pulling this, I'm sure, from other libraries as well, just sort of the basics. His projectile base class has a speed, and it's got a rigid body, and it detects collisions, so pretty straightforward. So he's made a little projectile, and he spawns one, and then he gives it a force. I'm not going to go deepest into all this Unity stuff because there's other people who will do tutorials better. I'm just going to do my project, and you guys can, just talk about it a little. But here he's adding a force to that projectile. It's going forward at a speed. Bob's your uncle. The timestamp cooldown happens, and there you go. So that's how he's hooked up a very simple projectile. Just it fires a little thing. He also appears to have added procedural spiders. This is his second check-in. He said imported the F Impossible procedural legs packet animation package. That's cool. We talked a little bit about having different procedural-based critters. That was kind of an idea we had to sort of drive this. But at the moment, baby steps. He's like, all right, I've just imported the procedural legs animation package to be used with monsters. We have 3 procedurally animated spiders that we randomly place at 3 different spawn points. Cleaned up some warnings on the logs the projectiles had. Great. So this is obviously, we can see these spiders. Go to the scene here. Where are you, spiders? Looks like these are his 3 spiders. He's got these 3 variants. He's got these monsters in here. Test spawner placer. It's just a thing. I don't know how it works. Cool. Obviously, he's got some test spawner placer. While I was offline, I looked at some other things. Number one, I don't have a great way to stream the actual output of the headset yet. The best I got at the moment is for you guys to see it in play mode while I'm playing. It's okay, but of course, we're looking at black on black. I wonder if I can change that, actually. How do I change that? I can make the background here different. The plan here is that this game would be a moody, creepy game, and the creepy moodiness means we want to use a lot of black and white vibe. So that means we've got everything with a black background. I'm going to see if I can, I think it's in project settings. Hold on, I'm going to Google it, it'll be faster. So, hold on one moment while I look this up. Where do you set the skybox color? In Unity. You'd think after doing this for years I would know all this, but there's just so much I don't remember. Alright, rendering lighting settings. Fine. I'm guessing it's in project settings. Where are you? Select window. Rendering. Oh, just kidding. It's not in project settings. Tells you how much I go in here. I never go into this tab. Alright, the lighting tab. So, I spend most of my time in the engineering side of things. I'm not as often building the assets or setting up the look. But, we learn. Alright, so what do I want? Click the lighting settings. Yep. I don't have one. Let's make one. Now we have lighting settings. I guess I should move that somewhere now that I've made that little asset. Of course, now I don't know where I made that, but that's alright. I think it was in prefabs. Scripts. Prefabs. You know what? There it is. thanks, search box. Oh, it was under test scripts. Awesome. All right, put this here. Let's rename it. Great. Of course, watch me not actually need this, but it's fine. What does this say? Select the environment tab. There is no environment tab. That's what I get for doing Google AI. When you do a Chrome search, you just get AI output. Let's see here. I suppose I can. Oops, wrong thing. That thing. Just looking around here. Just searching. When searching in Unity documentation, don't forget it matters which version you're looking at. I believe we're in 2022 3.45. That'll do. So where is this? What I'm after is I'm trying to set the background so that it's not black. If I do like a darker, like a blue or something, then maybe you guys can see it when I'm streaming here. And it won't matter in the game because in the game we're using pass-through, so you're just going to see through the environment. Now let's do another thing. That's how it goes. Oh, it's in the camera. What? I didn't expect that. But I suppose that makes sense. So it's going to be in here. I suppose I can hide your thing again. Where are you? Got sidetracked. Just trying to see if anyone's on the stream because I have no idea how to see how many people are on it. Oh, there's one viewer. Hello, one viewer. Whoever you are. It's me. It's me looking at myself. Whatever. All right. Anyway, back to the camera here. There's a camera rig right here. This is the camera rig, so I wonder if this is where you set up the... This is the reality of game dev, folks. Find settings in Unity to affect the tiny change you're after. I don't see it here. But this isn't a typical camera. This is the Unity camera, the Unity OER camera. So that means things are going to be a little different. So I guess maybe I can ask what do we want to ask here? We want, how do I change? All these terms that they probably don't use anymore. Do they even use OVR camera rig? Yeah, okay, we still do. Using OVR camera rig. Under the scene head, what? I mean, preferences, colors, change the background. That's edit preferences. What? We're missing. What are people seeing? I hate when you look and you find old answers in old Unity. This guy's talking about the skybox. Yeah, they're looking at the actual camera component, which of course we're not using because we're doing the Oculus. I would think it would be here or somewhere else. So tracking, display, color gamut. That's about the output of the display. It's probably not what I want. Splash screen, I don't care about that. Let's if you turn this off. Yeah, it's definitely here. I wonder if there's just like is there something, you know, it's like my menu bar is too small. It's not the lighting. Let's close that. Probably, maybe. I'm actually gonna not use this because I'm not sure what that will. I'm not sure what that will change. So we'll close this. Clear all that garbage because I don't know what it's doing, but I don't care right now. Seriously, it's got to be this camera. All signs point to this camera. Is there another camera deeper? Well, there is this. What is that? Oh, that's the camera inside of his scanner. He made a second camera. Ha! And this has a background color. But it's not going to matter because that's not what we're seeing. But I can see the background color everybody's referring to. That's cool. Well, I might abandon this for the moment because this is a giant. No, I don't want it. I want you guys to be able to see what we're doing. Maybe it will be in. OVR camera rig background color. See it right here. Someone had to do it with a script. Well, screw it. I'll give it a shot. Seems like it might be interesting. Let's make we'll make a script. Great. They're doing it by they're doing it by just setting a background color. I guess I'll put it in utils. Seems like a fine place. Let's call it like a Uni play mode of background colorizer. They said it works in play mode, and that's kind of what I'm after for you guys to be able to see. And then we can always turn it on. Get the camera. mono behavior. Does this even work? Is this script legit? No. We will refer to this camera. How about that? Probably build Singleton for that in the future, but whatever. So now I should be able to just do this. Well, maybe the script is old and not real. Oh, derp. Gotta put it inside the class, turns out. And I gotta make a method. And it was in an update method they do this. Now, I don't know that I would want this. How about we just try the start method? I don't think I need this to be firing every time. They said they put in an update method. I have no idea why they would do that, but this means actually probably camera.main. Yeah, okay, that does work great. I don't even need the div reference. That's good. All right, see if that works. I'll do it exactly the way I described it first, just to be on the safe side, and then we'll back it up. Just for argument's sake, let's just do this. And I don't want it. Let's make it red. Just be really obvious that I can see it. Okay, and let's add one of these here. Make a nice thing. This is background colorizer, I think they called it. Unity play mode. Okay. Just want to see what that is. Great. There's a thing. Great. Okay, so I'm going to fire it up here. I'm not going to put the headset on my head. I'm just going to wear it on my shoulder, as I've shown folks in the past. If you put your thumb over the sensor, that's like simulating putting it on your face, and that'll do for now. Hey, it worked. It's red. Oh, good. And now you can see those little spots. Okay, good. Let's not pick red, because red is terrible. Let me see actually if the start method will be enough next, because I don't want this to be, it's a lot. I mean, it doesn't cost a lot of processing, but it's still wasteful to be doing that every time. There's no need to do it every frame. So let's, how's fucking type? Great. So let's just try that. There are some simulators. Okay, that does work. Great. So now I don't have to worry about that. Okay, so now when I'm in play mode, this will help. We're not going to do red because red is tragic. Let's pick a nice, pleasant color. And in fact, why don't we make our script lovely and let's enhance it a little bit. Just make up a color. Just call it background color. Great. And we will default it to, we'll make it, you know, a good blue to start with, but I'm now going to set it. Great. Sorry. Oh man, I keep forgetting you guys can't, that I have to switch every time manually, but here we go. I just updated this script so that there's a defined background color, and then we're just going to set it. This is like very basic, but whatever. Okay, so now in Unity, I've got a background color. Wow, that blue looks terrible in my eyes. Okay, let's make it something a little nice. We'll just like sort of lighten it up a little. Great. Set it here. I'm now actually going to avoid this whole scene update problem in case we decide to change it personally or whatever. So next we're going to have, I'm just going to make a folder for miscellaneous prefabs. And we'll go ahead and drag this guy right in. So now that'll help separate so that if I change the color or Ryan changes the color, it's not going to change the scene every time. And now let's just see what's going on here. And I will hit play with my finger in the device. me know, now that you can see a little better what's going on, because it's not, it's things that are in there are black, and black on a black background was unreadable. But now you can take a look. So let's see, when I hit play, one more thing, does this work for you guys? Excellent, it does. Psych, maybe it does. What's going on? Why do I have a null reference exception? Oh drama. Why do you give me trouble? Looks like maybe Unity has hung. Oh, there we go. It was just very slow. I wonder if how much strain I put on my machine with all this trying to stream at the same time. I'm sure that's non-trivial. Well, we're staring at a spider. In theory, I stopped it. Let's look at Task Manager. What's going on, buddy? Oh, there we go. It got there. It just took a little while. Okay, it has stopped. Maybe we won't go full screen. We'll stay focused, but you know what? I'll see if I can make it a bigger window for you guys just for now. What were those errors, by the way? Oh, the audio system. Yeah, I don't care right now. What line was that? 22. So this is a problem with singletons and the singleton methodology. When you are shutting down the game, it's almost always the case that deep in the order of operations of how things are being, returned to memory and things like that, you lose track of things. So I'll just do if I check for null, it's not going to work, I don't think. Because my null check, my get is going to I want on shutting down. I think there's a I'm gonna add a method to this to just check to see if we're shutting down. Where's that being set? Is it being set? It is, in theory, on the destroy. Well, we'll give it a go.
Is everybody in the groove?
I'm not going to lose a lot of sleep over this. It's really a benign error, but I don't know. It's nice to not see errors. For good doobies, we'll be sure to squish all the errors. Where was that? That was in the test thing, I think. Yes. Great. I just want to not do anything if we're shutting down. Because if we're shutting down, who cares? I'm not going to listen to that thing anyway. Great. Whatever. Let's start. Okay, let's take a look at the headset, and we will throw it on, and we'll see if you guys can see what Ryan's been up to. So, what can you see? How do I see what you see while I'm seeing this? At the moment, pass-through is not enabled because I'm seeing a giant blue world behind me. We don't want that. So this might be a problem from the standpoint of the game actually working. But at least for the moment, I'll show you what we got. Now, these are the projectiles I was talking about. He just makes a little projectile that he spawns and shoots off into the world. They don't do anything, but that's okay. And here we have these 3 spider-looking dudes who just have procedurally based legs, apparently, to walk on a surface. I don't even see the spawning elements, so I'm not sure whether they're triggering. Let's see if I can back up. Yeah, you can see spiders. And I'm looking now. Yeah, you can see that. So you can also see this was the screen I was talking about. It's obviously not working right because we don't have pass-through on, but that sort of shaded box you see, that's sort of the window that's sort of doing the scanning so that you can make a cool effect on the world. Now, what's interesting is the pass-through stopped working when I put that background in, so let me try to disable this for a minute and just see if the pass-through is working again. Too many things. I'm waiting. This is slow. I think maybe we're gonna have to find a different solution for this. Maybe the streams will be more about summarizing what's been going on, showcasing how some stuff works, because I don't know if streaming while I'm doing the development is going to be effective. Okay, when I turn off that script, so you guys see black, and now what's funny is I can see you because pass-through is enabled. I'm seeing through the world, and I can see my monitor, where I can see what you're seeing. If I shoot in front of that, you can see, there you go, I know there's a background there. You can see how this screen thing, that shaded area, is making that red appear. You can see the spiders down here. Some spiders, they don't have any other effect, but this guy has an effect. That's kind of cool. And what you can't see is, you can't even really see this rectangle very well, but the rectangle that's attached to the gun is basically doing a filter on the pass-through. Looks pretty neat. It's sort of it's like a red outline effect, and everything's sort of orange tinted. So it sort of looks like you're looking through, I don't know, the scope of a gun, but it's, it's large. All right. All right. Cool. I also think we have another challenge. This is the other challenge. When I saw that in the room, both with the backgrounds and not, I noticed that what we didn't see was the spawning objects. And the spawning objects are set so that they will affix themselves to the room. And I'm still new on all this, so I don't know quite how all this works entirely, but that's part of what this whole project is meant to do, is to learn how this works. But essentially with the quest, you can scan the room around you, and the device stores information about the room. I did go on before the stream and verify that this room that I'm in has been scanned, and even the surfaces have been scanned. So my desk, I have a table that's here behind me. I have sort of a table over here. I've sort of scanned this space before, and that it sort of makes a fake mesh that sort of describes this space in various ways. Certainly, I know the device knows it's there, and when I played on the device with room scale, I did see when I looked up that different element, like there were these little black discs that Ryan has just to prove the spawning positions. In fact, I think they're, I'm not sure if he has a prefab reference. He does, I think. This is some little spawning position tile. I don't know enough about how you hook this up yet, but he's got these little spawn positions, but this is clearly the placer, and it is placing these elements. It's placing these spiders in those places. Let's say when I looked at this before, it was like a little black, smooshed sphere, which I could see was on my ceiling and on my wall, so I knew that it was obviously reading the room. But when I showed you guys, I didn't see anything happening there. One thing in theory that could help us, which would be great, is there is this Meta XR simulator. And in theory, then you're playing through a simulator and not to the headset. But I have yet to get this to work quite right as well. I know that when I fire it up, it spawns more windows. Let's see if I can add them so you guys can see. It is playing on the PC. You can see there's a thing here. Oh, damn, look at that. He's got these spiders hooked up. That is creepy as hell. The spiders all have keyboard input wired up. I'm pressing WASD, and I can see the spiders walking around. That's fantastically creepy. I approve of creepy spiders. Good job, Ryan. However, let's see if I can add a window here. The window that I want to capture is which one? This. That's interesting. There's this synthetic environment server that spawned, and then there's yeah, that's this guy. Can you see that? No, I don't know if you can see that thing. There's a terminal. It's pretty boring. And then there's a synthetic environment server. Is that a pop-up? Streaming. It's a challenge. Yeah, this thing. Synth end server. That's it. Well, let's try it. I don't think I named it. Let's rename this thing. It doesn't look right to you guys. So that's weird. Yeah, that's not very useful. It looks like almost like I'm getting like a weird mirroring effect or something. Great. We won't use that. Well, let's just say that there is another window that pops open when you hit play mode when this toggle's enabled. That is meant to provide like a fake environment. That fake environment is how you see, how it pretends to be in a room. So the idea is you're trying to, emulate what it would be like. And in fact, you can see it's working because even though I don't know how to navigate this, I don't know how to steer the camera. Is this working? No, none of that matters. I don't quite get what this particular visual here is in the center. But I've noticed if I'm looking through the headset, this isn't here. But you can see, let's just say these red things here. These are the spawners. This is where the little spiders have been spawned, I think around that point. God, that thing is awesome and creepy. Anyway, these red things they're being affixed to the walls. So in this fake room, which I don't even know the shape of, that's how we're seeing it. Let's see if we can put this thing back on. Hey, look at that. That's a little better to see. in this room that I still don't quite get the mapping of what we're seeing here. Obviously, we have a dude who's spinning around us endlessly. And where are the spiders? Not a question you want to ask. Well, this is the little disc, and this is the red thing. This is terrible. I don't even know what I'm looking at here. I'll have to screw around with this offline to figure out how to do this better, but I'd love to be able to give you guys a visual of what's going on. And also, it would be a lot nicer if I could test in the editor a whole bunch before I have to go back to the headset, because my iteration cycles are garbage. All right, it's been about an hour. I know I've just kind of been futzing around showing you various things. Let's actually do something. I need to accomplish something every time we get on, other than giving you guys a tour. So, what do I want to accomplish? Let's make something straightforward, and let's do a pooler. Oh boy, an object pool for the projectiles. That's a useful thing. Let's go see what other projects I used to have that do this. I'm gonna browse around while you guys are hanging here. What was a thing? Smallbots. Smallbots is our game that was released on the Apple Vision Pro. Uses hand tracking. That I can probably, I think I have a website for that guy. Let's see if we can pop it up for you. All right, let's see here. This is Smallbots. Do we have any video? Maybe. Not a lot on our website about it. I don't even know where we put the trailer. That's fine. Smallbots is a game where you are this tiny mech. It might be on YouTube, actually. I don't want to search YouTube at the moment. In a game, let's take this one screenshot. That'll probably do for now. Oh, download it. That's not useful. Well, in the game, you are a little mech. And as a little mech, the idea was you were going to be a toy mech inside of a great, like a kid's house. And it's almost as if you're sort of the living imagination of the kid playing with this mech toy. And so this mech toy, the mech walks around through, like a giant living room, and you, the player, are seeing from the perspective of like the action figure that would sit in the mech. So you're in the mech looking at the mech. So it's sort of like playing a mech game, except the mech is in a giant living room or a giant bathroom or those sort of things. And that's kind of what makes it fun. And the creatures that are attacking you are all toys or sort of conglomerations of pieces and parts that a kid would have played with and put together. It's kind of hard to see in these shots, but like you can see it's like scissors walking with like googly eyes glued on, stuff like that, or tennis balls with googly eyes. So it's a whole thing. This is an apple with a bunch of legs, and you're shooting the apple. That's the slide moment. And you're firing a missile at sort of, Lego trademark, not Lego creations of like little things pieced together. And the googly eyes are what we use to sort of say, this is a thing that's been, embodied by the bad guys. And you're basically running it. It's kind of like it was inspired also by survival games like like what are they called? Like Vampire Survivor, and that sort of ilk of, kind of auto shooting, collect upgrades, get new weapons that fire on different intervals, things like that. So you can sort of build different ways. At any rate, it used shooting things. And because it did shooting things, it absolutely has pooling. So let's go grab some of my pooling code from that project. I'm going to close that window, and I will move over once. Does this share? Here's our current project. I don't think it shows you the other project, which is good. I don't necessarily want to show all that. I don't care at the moment, but opened the project. It looks like there's nothing in it. Oh, you know why? We gave it a new name. It had a code name, and I opened some other folder that wasn't the right thing. That explains it. Okay, so somewhere in here, I've got a pooler object pooling system. I'm certain I do. Just gotta find it and remember how it worked. Oh, I'm in prefabs. Turns out you can't open prefabs. They're not scripts. Where did I put pooling? Is this using the pooling that came from somewhere else? That's possible too. I do have pooled audio source. Yeah, here we go. Apparently they're just in utils. I'll do better this time. I'll put it in a pooled folder. There we go. Object pooler, pooled objects. Okay, pretty simple stuff, but let's go ahead and do it up. Utils, let's make a new thing. We'll call it pooling. And let's make a new script here. This will be object pooler. We'll have to look at this and see what shape it's in. It's been a while since I looked at this. Maybe it's good, maybe it's crap. But object pooling, obviously a very useful thing. Let's grab all this and then we'll take a look at it. Boop, 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 boop. All right, what have I broke here? So this is defining a object pool item. Good enough. And then it's defining an object pooler. Delightful. There's going to be a list of these pooled objects. So there's a list that you can say, here are the things that can be pooled. And then there's going to be a list of the things that are actively pooled right now. Then we have pooled object. So hold on, let's keep going. Add a new class. I could put this class in the same file. Maybe I will. Maybe that'll be a little tighter. Just so there's sort of one. Does this need to be a mono behavior? This is mono behavior. Never mind. I don't want to do that. Yeah. Mono behaviors tend to want to just be their own. Just one thing in there that is the thing. I don't know that it's happy when you include multiple classes in it. Oh god. Oh, a tagged object. Right. Right. I kind of have some memory of that. Hold on. Let's bring that over. Where's that? It's in tags. Okay. Make a new thing called tags. This will be a little more utility stuff that's handy. We'll add ITagged object. I'll explain it in a minute. This is basically a script-based tagging, which is useful because I feel like I've had challenges with the Unity-based tagging thing in the past. Sorry, I'm a derp. I'm a derpy. Okay. And let's say we already have one thing that will be useful, which is a tagged player projectile. So let me add one of those. Did I just edit this? No, okay, good. Very simplistic. There's not a lot in this. This is just giving a thing I'll explain after, but of course I gotta wrap my brain around again. So hold on, now I have I-tagged object. Great. All right, so let's look at this for a minute and be like, what am I trying to do? What I'm trying to do is make pools of objects because when Unity creates and destroys objects, it can be relatively expensive. And so what you want to do is for things where you are creating and destroying them a lot, you can definitely improve your performance by making a pool of them. Like you pre-create, let's say 10 of these, and then when you're at runtime and you're going to fire your gun, in this case, we're going to grab one of these projectiles that's already been created. You might pass parameters in to initialize it in some way, but once you're finished with that, then that thing can be that projectile for that time, and when it's done, it will destroy it. It will like destroy itself, but it doesn't actually destroy itself because that would be expensive. What it does is it sort of says, I'm done. I am finished doing what I'm doing, which we call recycling. And we're basically saying, when you reach the point where it is time for you to recycle, you can recycle yourself. And what happens is the object pool can understand that items have been returned to the pool. We also can look through these objects and we can grab objects for use. This is one of those cases I pulled over a library and I'm thinking, did we use this? How far did I work on this? Because we've done it in the past. So let's look here. Certainly, when this thing starts, we're going to look at the items to pool. So the idea is, of all the items that you want to make pools of, we're going to go through them, and then we're going to instantiate instances of them. We're going to put them in some position. I tend to move this pooler in some, space that people won't see, out of band, but we'll deal with that after. We'll figure out where to put it and all that after, so no one sees it. Then each of these is going to be set to a 0, 0 position. It's going to be told to be inactive. And then I add that object to my list of pooled objects. Now when I'm looking for a pooled object, this is using, you saw this code in the first stream. This is, I did look this up again. This is a generic, I already forgot the term. I even looked it up for you guys because I thought I should make sure I call it the right thing. I think this is called generic typing. Hold on. Templating? Words are hard. Is it generic typing? Yes, it is. Okay. I will demonstrate here with my Microsoft C# lookup here. So there is something in C# called generic typing. And the idea is you're sort of define it's not inheritance because that would be different. But this is basically saying, how do you define functionality that a particular class will conform to, right? So let's go back to our pooling example here. I'll explain this well. What I want to do is we want to sort of define the concept of, I lost my window. All right, what we're saying is I am going to ask for a pooled object, but I'm going to be asking for a pooled object based on what type of object I was looking for. And let me see if I can find example code. Oh my God, I'm terrible. Did we not even use this? Oh, I spelled it wrong. Phew. Okay. So in the case where Ryan added the player firing a projectile, where did he put it? He put it under weapons. Weapon pistol. I might move this after, but let's not worry about that. So this is the moment right here where he instantiates the projectile. What we want to do is we want to not instantiate one from scratch, but instead we want to grab some from the pool, but we want to do it based on the type of object we want the player to use, right? So in my other project, imagine we had this object pooler. Player Singleton. It's probably worth pulling. I suppose that's worth pulling. Hold, please. We will grab a player Singleton, because that is useful. Oh boy, this sucker's going to be a monster, but we're going to trim it way down, because most of this is not going to exist in our new game. So, sort of thinking how I structured this. Yeah, we'll add a new folder. Oh, whoops. So, another Singleton, a player Singleton, that's sort of like when, in the long term, we're eventually going to get to the point where there's not going to be one scene. There's going to be lots of scenes. You're going to load levels, right? You're going to be like, oh, here's one level where these monsters attack, another level, another monster attack, etc. When you're dealing with VR, you're going to have this camera rig. Now, in theory, what we want to have is there's going to be one scene that's like the root scene. At the moment, that's currently this level test 1. That's not what we actually want. We're going to want another scene that's not level test 1. It's going to be the root scene. And the root scene is going to contain your camera rig. And it's going to contain a bunch of sort of pieces of functionality that are always going to be present with you no matter what scene we've loaded or what's going on. Because in theory, imagine like we want to keep continuity of your existence from scene to scene. And when the game starts, you'll start at a menuing scene, or probably the outer scene will just have a menu that we show up, that we open, and then maybe the menu says, you know, click the test scene. And so you click that, and you'll dive into, we will load the test scene additively. But the key is, this camera rig and a bunch of the functionality that we've hooked on here is going to be always present. And even things like this audio manager, it's always going to be present. You're never not going to have a reference to this audio manager. In fact, most of these Singletons that I'm making, they're going to be like the game controlling Singletons, and you're always going to want them around. At the moment, I'm going to make a player Singleton. It'll be here. Eventually, we will, we'll probably make the rig attached underneath the player Singleton, so that way there's sort of a nice hierarchy of this is sort of you, the player, and here's all the crap that comes with you. And it will probably include the audio stuff and else. And so sometimes the objects inside won't be extensions of the Singleton class, so you can't call them anywhere. But what we will do is we'll put references in the player Singleton, and the player Singleton you will be able to call from anywhere. So you can always get a reference to these things no matter where you are and where you're buried. But let's go back to hooking this up. And first I'm just copying over the other one. Bam, a million things. Now I'm going to delete like all this because we don't want any of it. Oh my god, IInitializeable, another beauty. Yep, we're going to grab that too. Welcome to another side quest. This one's also worth grabbing very early. Someday, I promise myself I will make a project settings that lets us, hold on. Why is this not opening? I'm going to want to make there we go. I'm going to want to make a set of things. Oh boy. It's like everything I make has another thing that's going to need another thing. We're going to get there. We're going to get there. All right. This is under utils. We're going to add IInitializeable. IInitializeable. And it is in fact an interface. come back and explain all this. Give me a hot minute while I clearly cannot talk and do this at the same time. This refers to UniTask, so now we need to go get UniTask. That we're going to do together. Okay, let's back up for a minute. What are we doing? There's going to be this player singleton, right? Let me comment all this crap for the moment. The player singleton is just going to have references to stuff. It's just going to be a place to store the player and the high-level things that are a part of the player. And I don't even mean necessarily like the player from the perspective of like the game logic, like the fact that, I don't know, you're a guy and you get hits and you get damage and all that. Nope. I'm actually talking one layer further out. For us, what we like to do is we wrap this camera rig and all these sort of high-level objects, all these sort of main, it's almost like a game controller. You could think of it that way. But because we ran into this in the past, because one of the big things you have to do is, let's say, number one, you want the camera and your rig and everything to exist from the outer scene into the scenes that you're loading. You want to have a continuity of that existence. Otherwise, weird things happen. The game will wonk out. So basically, that one version of you and your camera, that's part of the player singleton. Another thing that happens is if you're using your controllers, and I think I've mentioned this before, for now in this game, we've just got button presses and things, so we're just reading it. But when you're doing, I forget the terminology we've been using ourselves, but like if you're doing interactions with the world, I think that's a term Oculus uses as well. A button press isn't a button press is one type of interaction, but it's not sort of a physical one. And with VR and AR, you are going to have these physical interactions. So maybe the interaction is a grab. So maybe there's an object in the world, I want to reach with my hand, I want to grab it, and then I want to drag it around. In the Oculus dev kits, there is a interaction sets, and there's a whole world here that I'm not getting too deep to at the moment, but you could reach out with your hand, you could grab something, and then you can move it around, and there's a way to work with that. There's another interaction, which is array interaction. So imagine a ray will shoot out from the tip of your controller in 3D space, and it may collide with things. And so maybe you grab it by pointing your ray at it and holding the grab, and now you can move it around. That's a ray interaction. There are lots of different interactions, and a thing that you have to do is, if you're, very likely your game may have different modes where you're changing what interactions are available or not. So for example, maybe let's imagine we were going to let you pick up and throw spiders. Well, maybe I want to go into a mode where I'm able to pick up and throw the spiders, but I don't want to do that all the time. So by default, I'm using the gun. And the gun doesn't have a ray, and it's not grabbing, it's not doing any of that. But maybe when I switched weapon types to the gravity weapon, then now I turn on the interactions for the ray, and I turn on grabbing, and now I can say, oh, when the ray detects a spider, and you hold and grip, it'll grab the spider and pull it close, and then you can chuck the spider, and everything's great. But the game logic of grabbing the spider and throwing the spider, ignore that. What really matters was I had to tell the Oculus system I would like to turn on these interaction modes of the ray and grabbing and some of these things. So you need something that is going to be in charge, the brain of turning those things on and off and determining whether they're available or not. That is another reason why we made the player singleton. The player singleton ends up housing the controlling logic, or at least he houses the thing that is the brain for that, to say, look, I'm the player singleton. I know what all my interaction objects are. I can tell you whether we've turned some on or some off, and we had a player mode and stuff where we said, oh, player mode, grab, player mode, shoot, player mode, whatever, so that we could flip these things on and off and make it available for you. That's a lot of exposition, but it's to say there's a value to having this one always present object that you can take with you and have references to all your sort of subparts inside. So the next thing that I ran into when we were going to make this player singleton, we think, great, let's just grab the player singleton. I'm afraid not. The next thing we need is IInitializeable. So IInitializeable is our solution to a very, very common problem. Every Unity game I make, this problem comes up. The mono behavior, which is, the bread and butter of all Unity projects, all Unity objects. If you make a game object in the world, that game object lives in the world and it has a life cycle. And everything we're putting here, all these components we add on, all these components are mono behaviors. And the beauty of a mono behavior is it gives you these life cycle methods. You get awake, you get start, you get update, you get on destroy, you get all these different life cycle events. In particular, let's think for a moment about, let me just screw around in here. We'll make a test class. Great. And in particular, what we're going to try to do is we're going to try to solve timing problems. Timing problems are the worst, and they happen every time in Unity. And what you got to do is you got to be clever about what you're doing. So let's imagine these three things, and then let's say there's some other thing that's going to happen. I don't know. Private void. I don't know. Like foo. I'm not going to use foo. Everybody used to do that. It's an old Java thing. Let's say like fire weapon, right? Something exciting. So if you are using Unity and you take your example object, did I even write it? Ugh, did I not compile it right? Too many things at one time. It's called test example. All right, let's try this again. Test egg. No, doesn't even see it. Maybe I have compiler errors. Ugh, as long as you have compiler errors, it won't find things. Whatever. We'll move on. I'll just explain it. If you make in your script, you have awake and start. Awake will fire once when the game object is first, let's say, perceived by the Unity engine. It's a good way to think about it. You also have on enable and on disable. So start will fire after awake, but also when a game object is present in a particular scene while the game engine is running. I think it even happens during editor. Let's not worry about during editor. Great. Then you have on enable, which will happen when the game object is enabled, and you have on disable, which will fire when the game object is disabled. Now, if you have a reference to a thing, so let's say I have a reference to, I don't know, some other game object, and it's called, I don't know, we'll call this a bullet, right? You have this thing that you're referring to, and you want this bullet to do something. Well, what if the bullet, did I spell bullet right? I don't even care. Test bullet, just call this a mono behavior. Let's say that during the start method or during the awake method, it does something. It looks up some information. Let's imagine you had a bullet that gets smarter over time. Every game session you play, the bullet gets stronger and stronger, right? So you have some int that's like your strength. And every time you shoot the bullet and it hits something, that strength is going to get stronger. But you're saving out the value of the strength in some, storage system that you're going to save between game sessions. And let's say when you're thinking to yourself, you know what? I want to load the strength every time this thing is initialized. So you're like, load strength. And let's say that the loading of this strength happens during an awake. But let's say the way you load strength is by referencing another system. Let's say our player Singleton, right? We're getting that, and we're getting our persistence layer or whatever, and we're going to load the strength value from that. But then you got to ask yourself, when I'm loading the strength, does this persistence layer, does it have some code that it's doing that's going to happen during its awake in order to get itself initialized? And the answer is maybe it does. The interesting problem in Unity is that while we're guaranteed that an awake will fire before a start, we are not guaranteed about the order of all the awakes of all the game objects in a scene. Nor are we, if we're talking about the starts, because maybe this wasn't an awake, maybe this was in start. That's fine, we can do that too. But we don't know the order of all the starts of all the game objects in the scene. So maybe my test bullet start and what was my other test thing? My tests are terrible, but that's fine. Let's say in our other example, we had our other test example. Maybe this thing in its start is going to say, I don't know, like fire test bullet, right? That's what we want to do. And I'm relying on the test bullet to be some test bullet that I've even got a reference to, right? Yeah, make a test bullet. And I'm like, sure, this is my test bullet. And I want my test bullet to fire. Right? Right. Let's say that the test bullet's going to, or I don't know, deal damage. When this example starts, it's going to use the test bullet that is referring to, and it's going to deal damage. But when this thing starts, it's going to load its strength into itself. And when you were making this seemed perfectly logical. You thought, cool. When it starts, I'm gonna grab my strength from the player Singleton. And maybe the persistence layer did stuff in awake. So you want to make sure that your stuff happens happens after that awake is done. And you know that all starts will fire after all awakes. So you're like, okay, for the game objects that are around, I've got a persistence layer and it's firing its awake. Great. Then when I get to start, I'm going to have my bullet call that. And it seemed perfectly fine at the time. But the problem is you don't have a guarantee that this start is going to fire before this start. And so when this guy goes to deal damage, and maybe his deal damage, I hope this example is making sense, but when this guy goes to deal damage, he's going to refer to his strength. He's like, he does something with strength. If I use my strength here, how do I know, deal damage? I'm telling you to deal damage. The question is, did this start fire before or after this start? And the answer is you don't know. And so sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work. And the worst part is you can be pretty far along in your development cycle and have a lot of things with a lot of interactions, a lot of depth. And then you suddenly realize, oh crap, all my things are not timed correctly and none of this is working. It's a very sad moment. You realize you have to refactor everything. So the next thing that we can do is to create IInitializeable. IInitializeable is us taking control back from Unity and saying, I am going to define a method called init, like initialize. And I am going to fire init, so I know that I can put these in an order and I can be sure that they happen in the order that I want. Also, each object that implements IInitializeable, you can check it to say, have you initialized? Are you actually done initializing? And the answer will be false to start with, and it'll be true when it's done. So great, my objects are going to work. Now, how are we going to do that? How are we going to time this initializing? We're going to use another handy-dandy class. You could do this lots of ways. You could make a structure that wraps what the hell are they called? Co-routines. But I actually don't like coroutines. Coroutines kind of ugly to me. They're ugly to me because, I don't know, other languages like C#, C# has moved on, and it has made more attractive language constructs that to me, for me, I don't know if that's true for everybody, but for me, that kind of makes sense to me. They're a little easier to sort of parse mentally. So what we need is we need something. It is a fact that C# here does in fact include, let's go back to our test thing so I don't wreck this. It has async await. Async await is a C# pattern and language function or language feature. So you could say, I have the start method, or let me not do the start method because that has other implications. Let's have this void method. If you call the fire method from somewhere else, you're sure that your debug statement is going to fire, and then it's going to be over. And if you had some other method, let's call it test, and you call fire, you know that like if you looked at this, you know that hello is going to fire, then you're going to see the word hi, and if we said another one at the end, we know this would say goodbye. All right. If you do a mono behavior, sorry, not a mono behavior. If you do a coroutine, you could add a coroutine, and you could say, I want this to fire. Then I want to wait on this firing until it's finished, and then come back. The pattern in the C# language for this that is more common is async await. So if you say this is let's say fire, the method fire is an asynchronous method, and when I call fire, I'm going to await it. Or actually, I have this backward. Boo, 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 boo. You put async on the method that is calling. What have I done? It's like it's been too long. Hold please while I double check what the hell I do because I haven't done this in ages. Void is not awaitable. Oh, because it's void. You can't await a void, I guess. I get it. Let's make it an int. We'll just return an int. It's fine. Great. And now what we're saying is the value of, result equals await fire. Come on. Why are you giving me trouble now? Oh, this has to be a task. I think it's got to be a task. Something like that. There's a whole thing. There's a whole thing here. Let's even go to we'll go to the docs because it's been a while since I've been in here. And I don't even use this, I wrap it anyway, but we're gonna come back to that, but let's take a look here. Let's turn on our window. All right, so back here in C# world, if I do async, the async await paradigm, see if I can remember how to do this. So their whole methodology there are tasks, right? And I think you define a method. Yeah, it's going to be a task. Async task. Is that how it goes? The idea here is we're trying to let the fire method happen. And you could choose whether you want the code to halt or whether you want to proceed on your merry way. We're like so many layers deep. The point is, with asynchronous programming, in fact, maybe there's a way to do this. It's like right here. I just want to see this in the simplest way. It's never a clean, simple way to show it. Let's put that behind us. Does that window not work here? Doesn't even work here. Cool. So that window isn't even showing what I want. Whatever. Okay. No, I would like to show this window. Why don't you show? Here, we'll close the other tab so I'm not confusing myself. There we go. It is showing. Why? It's been showing the whole time. Whatever. Let's get to the meat of this. Asynchronous patterns are very useful. Unity has a problem where when it's running on certain devices, it only runs on a main thread. And so multi-threading has pitfalls. Someone, this delightful person, has made UniTask. UniTask is essentially a async await integration for Unity. If you do not use UniTask, then async awaits will be fine for certain things that are running on the main thread. But the moment you are not running on the main thread, it won't work properly. And async await is a much nicer looking format, I think. So what we need to do is we need to install this Unity package. Does he have this? Install via UPM package with git reference. Let's do that. Let's do that. We're going to add it to Unity, so let's give it a go here. Boop. Make sure we're showing the right window. Okay, so we should have package manager. We're going to add, let me make sure I don't have it in here. I suppose it's possible we put it in here, but I don't think so. No. Okay, so we're going to add UniTask. We're going to add a package from a git URL. We're going to paste their instructions. This is UniTask. It's coming from their GitHub, their Git repository. Where are you? Where are you? Oh, it failed. Didn't like it. What have I done? I might just be able to actually just add the URL instead of that reference to the URL. Let's try again. I think it just wants the URL. Hey, there we go. Okay, so we've added to the package manager. This added to our package.json. And now we will have UniTask in here. So let's take another look at what UniTask is doing for us here. UniTask basically provides the async await functionality into Unity. So first of all, we can just define UniTask methods that we can await, which is lovely. There's also, it will build into a bunch of common methods like load scene and all these kind of things, the ability to await. You can just call delays. It's basically a way to do coroutine type functionality, asynchronous things without using coroutines because I kind of hate them. So you can look at this later. It's deep and saucy, but it's delightful. So now that we have this, I can go back to IInitializeable. Let me hide our window here because we don't need that anymore. And now you can see we actually have UniTask. I should be able to import it. Beautiful. Now I have UniTask in. So I can call UniTask methods, or I can do async await on methods. This is important because we want to make these base classes be an awaitable UniTask method. So you'll note this this, and I believe there is an init method in here, which I'm going to look for. Let's go back here. Let's grab all of this. I'm just going to delete that because I don't really need it. Or we'll pull over things a little bit at a time. Oh, I'm missing the... Oh, I can just implement the missing members. IInitializeable requires us to have this isInitialize and the init method that is a UniTask method. So by default, I'm always going to have these methods available to me because it's initializable. And it means I can call initialize on or init on the player singleton to explicitly init things when I want. So hold please. What does it have here? Got it. I may as well pull over a couple of other things that are probably useful. This was the method that was in the original guy in our other project. Yeah, this project that I'm pulling from is pulling from a second project. This did not use the Arcus stuff. So for now, we're not going to worry about this. But the important thing is I have a place now where I can perform what I do under is return this.default init, which is actually, I believe that's the base all the time, but that's fine. I can tell the player singleton that I want you to init at a certain time, right? And we know that that'll happen in a particular order. So now let me do one more thing, which is our game controller. What did we call it in this other project? Oh, goodness. We might have called it game. Sometimes we do that. Did we call it main? Sometimes we call it main. Yep. Bingo. Main. Okay. This is what we really want to do. What we're going to do now is we're going to make a class. We're going to call it main. Main is like old C terminal, old C habits from way back in the day. We're going to make some model behavior. We're going to make this IInitializeable. Actually, we're going to make this a singleton even better because there's only going to be one main. It's going to be our main, Mr. Main. All right. Support this crap. Okay. Here's what matters. We're going to leave that. And I believe I have a base method for marking myself as initialized. Wow, I didn't even have it there. I just did it. Yeah. So main is going to be sort of the guy who begins the process of making everything initialize in the order that we want it to initialize. So in this case, we will now do in fact, player singleton. I don't mind keeping a reference. I don't need to. I can just call them up. So now we're going to init the player singleton. But here's the thing. We're going to await this. Why do you not like this, you jerkbag? What am I doing wrong? Oh. There we go. No, I don't want to return this default init. I want to set is initialized to true. Okay. It's boring. We're not doing anything exciting, but we are setting to true. What? What the hell? It's amazing how I forget my own patterns after ages, but that's how it goes. Ah. Right. We can make a UniTask of await methods. Let's do that. This one, a UniTask void just means it will return. Okay, just kidding. It has to be a UniTask because it's in it, and I'm implementing the interface for it. I don't think anyone's actually ever calling that. Sorry, I'm looking at my other project at the moment. Well, that's handy. We do want a reference to our object pooler, so we'll have him, and I believe we have our object pooler, just got to import it. So we'll have a reference to that so that you can talk to the object pooler from inside the player singleton, which is nice. This is fine. Why are you unhappy, Mr. Main? What's your problem? Oh my god, I'm an idiot. There we go. You know what? There's a way to do this too. Hold on. I've done this before. That's the static method. I think I got to await that. What is this guy again? So this is a static method called default init. This thing is a UniTask. This says I return the fact that this task has been completed, and I do that after I have basically done this internal dynamic method, which is just setting the initialize to true. So we're saying return that this task is completed and continue with this thing. Now there is a clean way to call this from each method, but it has been ages, so let me double check this. Derpy derp. I just need to await it. And awaiting it is dumb simple. So there we go. Okay. So here's what we're doing. We're defining our init class, but the last thing we're going to do in each of these init classes is call basically await the default init, which itself is going to continue after it has set this value to true, which is very quick, so that's fine. So now this is good, and now main is good because I'm now saying wait for the player singleton to init. Then once we're done, we will tell the world that the main has initialized. Okay, so this is all a whole bunch of like work and whatever to walk through so that we can be sure that things have finished initializing before we go on. And if things are not initialized, you can await them. And this is a way to sort of we could do something else. Let's say we were going to in our player singleton, or rather, hold on, let me do this. What's a useful base level? I think we have a level base. Yeah, we have a base level. What's that guy do? trying to see a good example for you guys to find one here. Well, what we can do is something like this. You can make your start method asynchronous or not. And you'll note right now, we are not awaiting this init. This init will fire and it will, if you wrote, oops, stop doing that. Why are you doing that? There you go. Right now, because this is an asynchronous method, when it fires, it would move on and it might wait. It might take time. Who knows how long it's going to take? Maybe this init takes a long time. We don't know. So immediately after firing this off, this would fire as if it was firing in another thread. Again, I think Unity ends up really not doing it quite the same way, but that's the beauty of UniTask, is that it will wrap all that so we don't have to think about it. So actual threading aside, let's pretend for the moment it spawned another thread. That's kind of the way to think about it. It's not technically a thread. Don't worry about it. It's going to be great. Basically, this goes off and does its work. If you do not await this call, then we will move immediately to the next line. So what you would see is the word hello would immediately come up in the output. And then if in here you did something like beans, I can't even spell right. If you wrote this debug, what you would see is it would say hello, and then sometime later it would say beans, because we'd wait for some period of time, then we would get here, but this got shot past, and you would just get hello, and then you'd get beans. If you wanted to be sure that this was completed, then now you could await this init. Actually, we do this with a, you do this, wait until, hold on. Oh, I can't do this await because this is a, sorry, let me move this out of the way. This is not the way to do this. I would just normally await this, but this complains because this is not asynchronous. Now it is, so now you can await. So now we're saying we call start, we will wait until this finishes, and when it's done, then we will proceed. So now you'd get beans, and then you get hello. The last thing which I was pasting, let's make a public void test where all is ready. If we are smart about how we initialize all of our game objects in the future, and we make sure this order is nice and tidy, then we'll make sure that any dependencies, like if we make another thing that requires the player singleton to have been initialized, then next object that requires player singleton initialization, we can call that here, and we will have made sure that this initialization is complete before we go to this next thing, which uses this as a dependency. Another way to do this is if you write a method and you just want to check to say, hey, this method, async, this method is going to do something, but I want to be sure that all the things that I need to have been ready are in fact ready. And this wait until method that's a part of UniTask will read this internal thing, and it will keep checking until all the results are true. When the Boolean that returns from this is true, then we'll be done. I can do this by just checking the isInitialized for all these pieces, and I'll know that the player singleton is ready. If I had a bunch of things, maybe I had other things, maybe I also want to check main.instance.isInitialize, right? I want to make sure both of these are ready, and then I'm sure that all of them are ready. So now we do something with our ready objects. So what we basically have is two ways to sort of ensure that the initialization order is going to go the way that we want, and that we can have the right things. Oh, hey there, viewers. You have people in the chat. What's up? Welcome to the stream. I'm new to this. Be gentle. All right, so the beauty of this is now we have more control over the initialization of the game objects as opposed to just, oh man, I think these two viewers in the chat are bots. That's so sad. So sad. Oh well. Now that we have control of these objects, or the initialization, now we can be a little more confident in how things are put together and how things are going to work. Let's go back to our pooler, because that is what led us down this whole thing. We started with a player singleton. So let's actually go all the way back to the top. What have we done? We added the C# library, or the UniTask library. The UniTask library is in turn used by IInitializeable and other things, but IInitializeable is why we sort of brought it in the first place, in order to define a method called init that itself is a UniTask, which means it is a thing, it is a task that we can await. My explanation earlier was garbage around async await and tasking, because ultimately it's about tasks. You create methods that return tasks, then you can async, or you can declare asynchronous methods which can await tasks. That's basically how that all works. And unitask, like one task, is because that's what it's doing behind the scenes for Unity, is it's sort of wrapping everything as if it's one task. I think that's how it ultimately works. And that's because Unity has problems with actual multi-threading on devices. That may get resolved, or that may be better when it first, it may have been like that in the beginning, but whatever. These are just the habits I have, so I've stuck with them, and they work, so I'm happy. Okay, so now that we have an IInitializable, we have our player singleton. The player singleton has an IInitializable. It implements IInitializable, so I can say, yes, I'm going to have an init method so that I can do whatever I need to do in the order I need to do it for the things that are mine that I want to make sure are set up correctly. We also have a main game object, and it is going to go through all of the initialization of all of the objects that that we want in order to initialize them in order. I suppose I should put a little comments in here. Order of our choosing. Cool. So when the game starts, we know that start will happen at some point differently for every other game object that has a start method. The beauty is now we have an init method, and the init method can say, I want to init, and here's what we're going to do. We're going to how do I want to do this now that I'm thinking about this? What we really want to do is we want the main init to only say that we are initialized once everything else is also initialized. Now, if I do it manually here, this will by definition be true because we will have made sure that every init sets the initialized to be true. So that's redundant. We don't need that. We can just do it like this. And once we're done, we know that the main is true. And anyone can interrogate the main class to say, are you initialized? And if you are initialized, we know that all the little sub-elements have also been initialized. Good enough. So now let's go back to our object pool. Our object pool, how did we use it here? Oh, the object pool, the player singleton, somewhere. Aha, this is where we started. We wanted to get from our player singleton, which now we have one, hooray. We wanted to get a pooled object of a particular type. We're way back on the pooled object thing. on the pooled object thing, what we're doing here is we're going to declare a pool. The pool is going to instantiate a bunch of objects. And then when you want one, you ask for one from the pool. You don't instantiate it yourself. So we're going to say, hey, please get a pooled object, which is one of these. And now this tag is not right because we didn't have that. We're going to call it tagged player projectile. Tag pooled player projectile. We do have one of these. Look at that. So now we just need to import this. Yep, good. Okay. If the object is not null, and I'm not playing all that as extra garbage, then I can get the component out of this. There are other ways we could do this. Like we could make this object be a, sorry, I didn't explain the tagging thing. Remember, we're saying get an object, get a pooled object that is of this type. This is basically how I'm typing all the objects that are put into the pool. And each one of these is just declaring an object that is also a tagged object. And so a tagged object is just an interface that we're implementing to say, yeah, we exist, right? It's really just putting the class on it so that I can find it quickly. So the object pooler says, hey, you want an object of this type that you have asked for, where that type is one of these tagged objects. That's why the interface works. This generic this templating lets me say I can use any T here, but T has to be one of these I-tagged objects. So now it's like, great, look through all your pooled objects, find one that is currently not active in the hierarchy and definitely has one of the components that matches this thing. And when you find it, that's the object, you set its position, you set it active, you pass it back to me, right? That's the idea. So there is a method for recycling the object. Why don't I have that? Where's that? Hold, please. There's a class here that is a pooled player projectile. He made the weapon pistol, oh, sorry, where's his thing here? I should get rid of these tests here. These are just getting in the way. Delete them, get out of here. His pistol instantiated projectile. Projectile is just a game object right now. Okay, so we're gonna make another directory. And we're going to add a very simple there's a lot going on here. We'll just keep it simple for the moment. We're going to add a new projectile called pooled player projectile. This is basically going to be like a base class that all of the projectiles will be. And this is going to be a pooled object. There we go. And what matters in his shooting? This also needs a projectile base. So let's, what is in this guy? It's just a projectile base. So what I want to do is I want to say the pooled player object. Add a new thing, a pooled projectile base. The pooled object. Pooled object is a mono behavior. Great. and a pooled projectile base. We're going to copy over his projectile base code. Boop. Put it. Oh my god, too many things. Okay. A pooled projectile base is a pooled object, but it also has rigid body junk. A pooled player projectile is a pooled projectile base. And that means if I go, oh, what are we missing here? I am going to no longer we're going to keep this here. We're going to get a pooled player projectile. This is a pooled projectile base now. And we're going to call this game object. Yep, good, good, good. This needs to be a pool. So we will ensure that we are in fact, that we have a thing. And now this should be fine. Yes, okay, so now instead of just instantiating any old object, we will get a pooled object. We will ensure it is of the right type. We will then, because it's a projectile base, we'll add the force and do all that stuff. Great. So now I got to fix it in Unity. Let's go take a look. You can't see, but I'm loading. That's fine. So, I just realized too the window that I had that was playing. What is going on? Get over here. Why? Can't hear the music. I'm trying to put the music back on. Now playing. I want to play here. This computer. Well, I guess we lost the music for now. I'll have to look at that in the future, but I don't want to get too distracted because I want to kind of finish up what we're doing. So now he's got in here his player projectile. So let's try to find it. Projectile test. Okay, he's got one. So that's good. He's got one object. This is why we work with prefabs. Makes life a lot simpler. So let's grab this projectile test. We will discard the changes of that thing. So now he's got this little, little visual, little thing there. Awesome. He has a projectile base. I actually don't want this anymore. What I want is we're going to add a different object, which is a pooled player projectile. And now I can take the rigid body here and I can reassign it. Ba-doom. And I can set the speed to 2, and now that's cleaner. And now we'll get rid of this. And so now there is one pooled player projectile class, and this projectile is one of those. Delightful. That was older. Okay, now that that's done, we want to make our object pool. So we're going to add our player singleton here. That's a thing we'll do later. We'll make that all cool. I'm going to make a prefab folder. I'm going to make player singleton. We could put it in the root, but it's fine. And now inside of I'm not sure where I want to put the pooler at the moment, so I'll just put it out here in the world here. This is going to be the object pooler. In fact, I think I might want this just as a prefab, so we'll just put this out here, boom. And now when I go in this object pooling, I'm going to make a new object, which is the object pooler. which is this guy. And now of the items to pool, we're going to make one. And that object that we're going to pool is going to be one of these projectiles. And why don't we make like 50 of them? And then we'll save this. And then we're missing one thing. On the projectile, I gotta add the tag. The tag, the tagged thing. This was a tag. The heck did I call that thing? It was a tag pooled player projectile. How to make things complicated. There we go. Nope. There's still something not compiling somewhere that's unhappy. Tag pool player projectile is a mono behavior. What are we missing? Tag pooled. Oh, you know why? I think the name of the class does not match the name of the thing. Pooled. Where's my tag? Oh, tagged. Yeah, I've named it. I've named it slightly differently, so I gotta rename the class, otherwise it won't find it as a mono behavior. I'll show you that while I'm at it. Tagged tag pooled player projectile. Great. We could either rename this. In fact, why don't we name this? We'll even call this like the pistol thing, because this is particularly the player projectile, tag pooled player projectile, pistol. So that way we know this particular guy is the pistol projectile. Okay. This sure is a whole lot of hullabaloo, but it'll be very useful in the future. Tag, bingo. So now this object has a tag, and that means the pooler, when it goes to look them up, I can get, there will be many kinds of pooled player projectiles. Hey, maybe we have one for the pistol. We have a different, maybe there's like the thing that shoots cupcakes. Cool. I duplicate this prefab. That prefab looks like a cupcake, and it's tagged something different, like tag pooled player projectile, cupcake pistol, or whatever. And then the code for the pistol, when it goes to shoot, in this case, this is weapon pistol. We could have weapon cupcake pistol. This could look up the pooled object that is tagged player projectile cupcake pistol, right? So you'd be a little different to get that very particular thing. But the code for what they do is the same. The projectile code is always the same because they're always the same, same projectiles. Whew. Let's hope that all made sense. Cool. Let's see if it all compiles and works. Let's go back out here. So we have a thing, we have object pooling, we have object pooler, we have one of these. Let's see how it goes. Let's just try it. I will turn off the temp thing and I will just do it this way for the moment. I'm gonna have to wrap this stream up pretty soon because I got other things I gotta jump to, but let's see if we can get this done. This would be great. First question, does it shoot? I'm currently, you can't see it, but the Unity Unity code is executing very slowly at the moment. Nice. Nice, got the blue background. All right, so here's my gun. It's oriented weird. Oh, we have a choke. Let's go look. Weapon pistol 23. Boy, yeah, because I'm streaming, whenever I start and stop, it takes a while to get situated. But that's okay, we can keep looking while this is going. That is weapon pistol 23. 23. We did not get the pooled object. Oh, because the player Singleton is pointing to the object pooler, and I never hooked that up. So I will, in fact, put the reference there. I have done that out in a scene. Do I want to do that? I don't think I want to do that. Why don't we put this guy inside, and then we'll apply. So now this guy's inside here. I don't know if he'll be here forever, but I'm content with it for now. There we go. The beginning of the player Singleton who gets fatter and fatter over time. Okay, that should work there. I'm going to do this in editor just for a hot second so I can see. I don't care that the room doesn't work and all this stuff, but I want to see if this pooler is correctly creating a whole bunch in the pool. Yep, I have 50 pooled objects. You can see I have all these tests. And they're all here and they're all invisible. So I got a bunch of them. Okay, so that was a good start. So now let's turn this off and we will go into the game and we'll see if we can get it to fire these pooled projectiles. So definitely we got a lot of sort of more infrastructure setup stuff, and a lot of this is coming from our previous projects just because of the experience we've had and we're used to it. The idea of a player singleton, the idea of object pooling, the idea of UniTask, the idea of IInitializer. These are probably all things that are super valuable to set up almost in every game right from the beginning. Especially IInitializer and UniTask, you could use that all the time. And object pooling obviously makes some sense, but let's see. Nope, it's not firing. We'll have to figure out why it's not firing. But I think we're going to end the stream here. I will continue to debug, but I can debug a little faster when I'm not thinking about streaming at the same time. So we're going to call it here. It's been lovely, and hopefully by the time when we look next time, you'll see that the pooling is working, and that we'll be shooting things from the pool, and we'll see what else we've advanced here. But thanks very much. This has been Experience Points, and we will see you next time. See ya.